Pero Juan, Yes, we have a bunch of people calling today, so like trying to figure out what to do with that.
morning. I'm Bishop Brian Pryor, and on behalf of the Brent community, thank you very much for being here. What we share this day is a common bond and relationship with Jake Miller. Each and every one of us has our stories of experience of Jake as family, friend, colleague, parent, teacher. All of that is a part of our gathering today as we bring together all of our stories and our shared journey with Jake. It's a blessing, even amidst our sadness and our grief and our missing Jake, to come together to know that all of us are blessed, and part of our journey sharing with Jake has been a blessing. Each of us, I hope and encourage, will share that story not only today amongst themselves, amongst yourselves, but in the days to come. I know for me, just hearing the sound of Bato behind me reminds me of a great trip to Cuba and lots of fun with Jake, and all sorts of stories that, as a bishop, it would be inappropriate for me to share with anyone else. But I'll hold on to those, and we'll continue to have good smiles as I remember and give thanks this day for blessing Jake and for the opportunity I had to share part of the journey with him, as well as that, just sharing the experience of here and my son's having him as a teacher. Upbeat.
Today we are giving thanks for the life of a man who loved us so much, and we all loved. He was so easy to love because he was so loving. As I get older, that seems more and more obviously the truth of everything to me. It's love. The nature of God is love. So I begin with this prayer, as I often do, which is that, my friends, the truth is life is short. We do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel with us along the way. So, be quick to love. Make haste to be kind. The God of compassion will never abandon. Amen. From now on, if your name's up next, you're up next. We're not going to introduce you. We're not doing anything formal like that. Jim.
Good morning. I'm Jim, Jake's brother. Today we're here to celebrate my brother and friend, Jacob Harold Miller. To know Jake was to recognize he valued knowledge and humor. I admired him for these traits and appreciated his brilliance, curiosity, and eagerness to share and exchange knowledge with everyone around him. I think it's fair to say he was an easy person to love and respect. I'm looking forward to hearing all of Jake's stories that others share today, stories that are about Jake as a friend, as a colleague, as a mentor, and as a teacher. Stories about Jake as a dad, and of course, a husband and a grandfather. I have many stories of Jake as a brother, but I want to take this opportunity to share with you the story of Jake's beginning, the heritage, the places, and the people that have informed his life and who he became. Jake was the youngest of 4 children born to Martin and Sophia Kane Miller. There is our older brother Bob, our sister Janice, and me, and finally, Jake. Now, you all know my brother is Jake, but in reality, he was born Jacob Harold Miller, and our family and friends from his early days all knew him as Harold. They wouldn't know it was Jake today, some of these people. This was more out of convenience, as our grandfather's name was also Jake. Our mother mother's parents, Jacob and Anna Schmidt Kane, were born to German Mennonite farmers who came to the States with a huge migration of German Mennonites from Russia. They arrived in Hutchinson, Kansas on December 24, 1874, carrying with them a single wooden trunk that held all their worldly possessions and nothing else, except their absolute determination they would start over and succeed. The temperature in Kansas that day was 13 degrees below zero. I'm very sure they thought they had landed in the Twin Cities. Our dad's parents, Marvin and Fanny Hostetler Miller, were Amish from northern Indiana. Their ancestors had migrated earlier from Switzerland, France, and Germany when the Anabaptists were being persecuted in those areas. Our grandpa Martin and grandma Fanny moved to eastern Colorado, leaving behind rich Indiana farmland in search of a drier climate to try and ease our grandma's respiratory problems. Although the Dust Bowl would negate any benefits gained from this move. It was here that our grandpa homesteaded 160 acres in Baca County, Colorado. I don't know how many of you know anything about eastern Colorado, but it is desolate. I often joke that the jackrabbits that are native to the area need a map to get around. Our parents began life together there and remained there until I was born, and our father took a job in Plain, Kansas, where our grandparents, Jacob and Anna, came from. On December the 28th, 1948, Jacob Harold was born in a hospital in Fowler, Kansas. In the early 50s, our parents moved us to a small town of Kisleton, where our dad had taken a position with the public school system and was to be in charge of transportation. Basically, he was a mechanic who kept the buses running. He also had a route of his own, and those kids loved him dearly. Once in Kismet, our parents bought a small dugout in which we lived. Kismet was a very small town of a few hundred people. The school district was very strong, covering a large rural area, including the Eastern Panhandle Pipeline. Living in a small town in Kansas in the 50s allowed for freedom to explore and learn independently. Jake took full advantage of this. Early on, he was spotting bird owls and prairie dogs in the pasture across the street. Jake's curiosity was always a part of him. As a young kid, he made friends with a guy driving a truck to Kismet that supplied water for oil drilling outside of town. He convinced his truck driving friend to let us all tag along to the fields and experience what went on in the oil rig. This was so typical of what happened throughout his life, first researching and then enthusiastically sharing his experiences with others. Traveling was a major theme in Jake's life. While still in high school, he planned trips and convinced our parents to travel with him to places they would never have ventured on their own, like Mexico and the Black Hills. His lifelong passion for learning new words began in his early years as well. I can still remember when our pastor took us fishing. He and Jake would visit for hours talking about words, dissecting them, discussing their origin and their full meanings. Jake's natural gift with the camera, his ability to capture something the rest of us might not see through the lens, started in high school. He was shooting pictures of everything and everyone that surrounded him and quickly learned to develop his own film. He began college at Emporia State University in Kansas. On the first day of class, when the professor took roll, he called out, "Jacob Miller." And for a moment, Harold didn't recognize his name. But from that day on, our Harold became Jake. Our family came from very humble beginnings. It isn't the background most people would assume would nurture the gifts of someone like Jake. But in reality, it's a big part of what made him who he was. I have so many stories I could share with you about my brother. We had so many adventures together. I can't begin to express their richness he brought to my life. I was his older brother in years, but he taught me invaluable lessons about life, how to live it to its fullest. He was a beautiful person. And it's easy to see that throughout his years, he lived a beautiful life. I love you, Jake.
Good morning. If I could, it would be a glass of bourbon for James. There are rules that must be followed. When Coach asked me to speak today, I said I'd be honored. I then started to think about all the videotapes that I have in my head, from the things that Jake and I did and what we talked about over the years. I was not sure where to begin. Some of those tapes would not be good to talk about here in the chapel. We'll save them for a later time. I first met Jake 28 years ago. I was working in his former classroom, room 402. Jake had just gotten back from one of his summer adventures. I was intrigued by all the items that he had in one of his rooms. He had stuffed birds and snake skins hanging from the wall. Ceilings were ties and jars of specimens in the back room. We started to talk about these items and about where we were both from. We discovered that we had similar interests in things that flew, swam, crawled, and slithered on the ground. From that day on, Jake and I would talk and take walks around the wreck. We didn't know it then, but we were the original collaborators of Breck. We used to go on walks around campus, which we often referred to as his 52-acre classroom. We would look at different species of birds, types of trees, and whatever else would catch our interest. The spring of the year was the best. Birds would be migrating through the area, some heading from further points north, and others would be returning and starting their courtship and nesting rituals on the campus. Jake had started a class studying the courtship of the red-winged blackbird here many years ago in his outdoor classroom. I'm sure many of his former students here today recall how passionate he was with this program, just as he was with all things that he did. Jake and I spent countless hours on the roof of the school looking for killdeer nests. They love the nest on the rocks on the roof. We would mark the nest, count the eggs, and make wagers on when the eggs would hatch. Of course, I never won that wager. Jake and Warren Hall started a breakfast school bird list, which at last count has over 110 different species of birds spotted on the campus. Jake was the original Google machine. His head held so much knowledge. If you went to him with a question about a bird or an insect, he would pull out a Peterson bird book or a National Geographic bird book and hand it to you and say, look it up. Even though he knew darn well what the bird or insect was. It was his way of making me learn. One year in the mid-90s, we came up with a great idea of building Canada goose nesting platforms. You see, there were not many geese around here, and Jake thought it would be a fun idea to have nesting pairs of geese so they could observe. At the time, there was only a Highway 100 pond and the Natchez pond on campus, and no geese. So we built 2 or 3 floating platforms and put them out on the 2 ponds. The first couple of years of our goose nesting project went very good. 1 or 2 pairs on each pond. But by the years 1999 and 2000, we had so many geese around here that the school had to hire a dog by the name of Chase to chase the geese off. Jake always said after this, some of the experiments worked out great, and others not so good. Jake was always on the lookout for the next best nest site. One year around 2006, we discovered a pair of red-tailed hawks building a nest in a cottonwood tree by Lake Englewood. Jake devised a plan along with Breck's technology department to get a wireless camera and install it by the nest. There was just one minor opportunity with this. The hawks were building a nest about 70 feet off the ground. Jake and I came up with a plan. I knew a guy with a large, high-lift bucket truck. We talked him into bringing the truck over for a minor fee. 2 bottles of 12-year-old scotch. He came over and lifted us up so we could install the camera. Everything worked out good. We installed the camera, the tech department got it up and running, but the hawks, they had a different plan. They moved. After some searching, we discovered where the hawks had moved. They were in a house, a yard behind the house on the southwest side of Highway 100. We did talk to the homeowners about our little project. He and his wife both seemed a little skeptical. Jake and I came away from that meeting with the same feeling. We thought we were both a little crazy. We never did go back. We did have success a few years later with the red tails and their nesting. Right up here in the Chapel Bell Tower, a pair nesting. Setting up the camera was just an easy walk up the roof. Once again, Jake said, if you're persistent on a project, you will have success. There was another area of the school grounds that Jake always wanted to use as a classroom. This was the wooded boggy area around Natchez Pond. Jake's idea was to have a walking path that went around the pond so students could walk near the water and observe the plants, trees, and animals that lived in a quaking, bog-type setting. Jake succeeded, as he always did, in getting permission to have the walking trail built, along with a generous donation by Ward Hall. A wonderful floating dock was installed so the students could actually go out on the water and make observations. And this leads to another story. Back in the mid-70s, while Jake was doing his graduate studies in Itasca State Park, he was cataloging and mapping all the pines and spruce trees in the park. There were numerous small, unnamed lakes and ponds in the area. True to Jake's form, he made some sort of a deal with the park staff that if he brought a 6-pack of beer to the park superintendent, they would name a lake after him. So, up in Itasca State Park, there is a Jake Lake. Jake and I visited it one time. It was a bit of a hike to get to, but such a wonderful, peaceful place. I'd like to go see it again, but I'm not sure I can find it. So, my plan is, I'm going to work with Breck's official cartographer, a map maker, and have Natchez Pond officially renamed Lake Jake. So that I and all of us can visit Lake Jake. I can keep on telling stories, there are so many of them. But I'm giving it time for this, as always. I just have one or two more things I have to say. As you walk around the campus, there are so many areas that have the Jake touch. From the wonderful native plantings in front of the upper school, the courtyards off the upper school library, the way the new classrooms are laid out with the technology boards and smart boards or all that. These are all areas that are the brainchild of Jake. So please, in the future, as you walk around this wonderful campus, take a few moments to reflect on that legacy that Jake left us. You know, I always felt the students here at Breck were so lucky to have Jake as a teacher. However, the more I think about it, it was not the students who were blessed, it was me. I got to have Jake as a teacher, and most importantly, a great friend for 28 wonderful years. Thanks, Jake. I do have an old blessing I'd like to read to you. This blessing has been used by my family for generations. May those who love us, and those that don't love us, may God turn their hearts. And if He doesn't turn their hearts, may He turn their ankles, so we'll know them by their limping. Rest in peace, Jake. You left us a wonderful legacy. Thank you.
Jake thought of his fellow teachers as nothing less or other than his brothers and sisters. Not a day goes by when we, the members of Jake's professional extended family, don't benefit from the vital work at once so hard and so delicate that he performed for us time and time again over the decades. I'm honored to read this slightly retooled and repurposed Walt Whitman poem in his memory. Oh, Birdman, my Birdman, our meetings all are done. The school has weathered every plant, the garden salt is won, the smart board near, ye teachers hear the students all exulting, while follow eyes as Gary leaves the laptops open, closing. But oh, Jake, Jake, Jake. Oh, the red-winged blackbird feeds where on the pond my doctor treads full with fallen seeds. Oh, Birdman, my Birdman, the hatchlings trill for you. Lift up the nesting box. The young are there for you to see. For Concha's love and teaching dear Anik in Golden Valley, the union stands. You made it so. Your colleagues strong will rally. Dear Birdman, dear brother, this plot beneath our feet, it is some dream that here at Breck we shall no longer meet. My Birdman did not lack for visiting Green Bay, and Lambeau's whole IQ was raised thanks to his mattered brain. And Breck is anchored safe and sound. You room with biotech. From north, the great Mosanka comes, the victor, Object One. Exult, O will hear the words that
Dr. Singh. Stop and look and listen.
There are teachers who impart content, and then there are those like Jake Miller who instill passion. Peter and I are honored to have been asked to share with you some reflections that we have about Jake Miller, a teacher who over the course of 40 years has impacted Breck School, the science program, his colleagues, and most of all, his students. A man who has instilled in generation after generation a passion for biology, for travel, for birding, for photography, and especially these past 2 years, a passion for life. Now you may be wondering why Peter and I, graduates from the class of 1981, were entrusted with this great privilege. But Dr. Jacob Miller has impacted the lives of 3 generations of testers. My father-in-law, John Tester, was a professor of ecology and behavioral biology at the University of Minnesota in the 1970s when Jake was a grad student there. And in 1978, he saw in this young scientist a humor and intelligence and an ability to impart his love of research and biology on people. And he called Lois Fruin, who was the head of the department at Breck at the time. And you see, John was not only impressed with the youth, he was also a Breck parent and a trustee member at the time. And he saw that Jake would bring such incredible wealth of knowledge to Breck School. So he asked Lois to interview him and consider him for a position here. And the following year, Peter and I were some of the first students of Breck that Jake taught at Breck. Now, from the very beginning, his sense of humor and that quirky drawl won him followers with fans and fans with both colleagues and teachers. And he shook things up right from the start. He and fellow teacher Van Anderson did not like the requirement that all male teachers needed to wear a tie. So they started a protest by wearing the most tacky, outlandish, colorful ties that they could find. And as word of this not so subtle protest started spreading through the school, you can imagine all the donations came pouring in. And soon he had a box that was overflowing with tacky ties, and he started tying them from the pipes and the rafters, and it was like banners decorating his classroom. And that spirit just endeared him to everyone in the school. But he shook things up not only in that way, but really in the way that he taught science. In Jake's classroom, we didn't learn and memorize diagrams from biology books. We mated fruit flies to learn about genetics. We dissected fetal pigs and calf hearts to learn about organs. He brought science to life.
In 1997, our twin daughters, Christine and Annalisa, were coming to Breck as part of the first grade sort of application process. And when Maya and I came back to pick them up at the front doors, there was Jake. We gave Jake a great big hug, and he asked why we were there. And he looked down at our daughters, and in that Kansas drawl said, "Well, I guess I won't be retired now for another 12 years until these 2 graduate." You know, and sure enough, many years later, Christine and Annalisa were sitting in Dr. Miller's biology class, listening to him, questioning his attire, his top, wondering where he got all those. And, you know, I think watching him do his infamous broom trick, laughing at his jokes, inspired by his red blackbird, and just being sort of imbued with a love of nature and curiosity, and taking wonderful trips with him was a gift that Jake gave every single student here at Breck. You know, and the trips were really quite extraordinary. You know, teaching in the classroom was only one way that Jake was able to inspire and instill a passion for the outdoors in kids. I mean, he really believed that you had to get out there and walk the land and breathe the air and experience nature at its fullest in order to really learn what it was all about and what it had. And he brought that to Breck just in spades. Beginning in 1980, Dr. Miller began taking trips of students on May program trips all across the world. He took trips to
Africa, and Kenya, and Tanzania, and Costa Rica, and Panama, to the Grand Canyon, all over the United States. And he took people on backpacking trips and birding trips, and he always did it with a purpose and a passion, not only to give kids an experience, but there was something about each trip that he thought was unique for the students to learn and to see. And in May of 1985, I were on a trip, one of the first ones he had done to Big Bend National Park in Texas, which was the only home in the world of the Kaliwa warbird. And Dr. Mills sort of taught us what to listen for, how to take photographs, what to look for in terms of habitat for birds, and how to be patient and observant. And sure enough, one early morning about 4 o'clock, he got 16 and 17-year-old kids out of the sleeping bags, and we trucked off for about a 5-hour hike through the wilds of Big Bend National Park to Boot Canyon, which was the one place in the world. We sat down, and I remember sitting looking at these pine trees, and we were there, and about half an hour later, this little thing flitted by, and all of a sudden, there it is! It's right there, and sure enough, we found one place, and I think the one warbird that was left. And I still remember sitting there and how excited he was, and it was just an example of what he did for all of those trips. There was a purpose behind it. Over the years, Dr. Miller and Joe Franke led dozens of trips for Breck students, and on one of the trips to Mount Kilimanjaro, Jake practically carried a disabled student up to the very top because he was bound and determined that everyone was going to get the full experience. And that was kind of the dedication and passion he brought to every trip. And our daughters traveled with him on one of his last trips to Panama in 2009. They came back awed by the wildlife, disturbed by sort of the destruction of the natural forest, but I think what impressed them and the other students most was that here were two teachers, and Jake in particular, who took the time to create an experience for them that was above and beyond the focus in academia and the four walls of Breck School, and to give them a passion to learn what it was like to walk in the wild and to see the birds and the trees and to hug the rocks and the trees. Over 450 students have participated with Jake and Jill in their treks across the world. And many of them come back as alumni, and they say that their passion for science, their interest in the outdoors, their love of this place was really fed by Jake Miller. And I think all of us feel the same way.
Of course, his greatest legacy at Breck is the research-based curriculum that has become the hallmark of the science program here. In the early 90s, he rewrote his curriculum to make it a hands-on, student-driven research program. He was a PhD, he was a researcher, he wanted his students to be curious, to ask questions, and then as has already been mentioned, he never gave you the answer. He wanted you to devise a study or a research program that would help you find that answer on his own. So his research program and his curriculum was designed around units, the red-winged blackbird unit, the winter ecology unit, the biome unit, and it was intended to make students become lifelong thinkers and learners. He also wanted his students to look outside of the classroom. He had no ego. He did not think that he could teach them everything, and so he started sending them into the broader scientific community to work with some of the most renowned scientists in the area, which is really the beginning of the Advanced Science Research Program, which is now one of the premier research science programs in the country. He also was committed to bringing the newest and best to Breck and students, and after attending a biotechnology conference, he returned and said, we're going to have that kind of a lab here. Sure enough, if you go into our science department, we now have a biotechnology lab that rivals those of many college campuses. He shared his passion and he inspired students. And if any of you have been on the Facebook post of Jake's for the past week, the remembrances from students of the past 40 years have just been pouring in, and the word that's used over and over and over is inspiration. You inspired us. You inspired us to be the best we could. A note from one former student captures what all of us who have been touched by his passion feel. You gave me a gift that I keep inside me to this day and have tried to pass on to my children. Your love of learning and new experiences was infectious, but it wasn't just that. It was bringing joy, humor, and just plain fun to learning. It was so addictive. Thank you for that gift.
Wow, it's quite a view from here. Thank you all for coming here to celebrate my father's life. Before I start my memories, I'd like to just say a few thank yous. First and foremost, I'd like to thank my dad's wife, Concha. She has made so many sacrifices over these past 2 years so that she can be with my dad at every moment. She attended his every need with great love and incredible tenderness. Second, I would like to thank Dave Bosenko, my father's dear friend of almost 50 years. Dave sat with my dad for many hours and through many therapies. And on days when he couldn't meet with my dad, they were certain to be in contact by phone. Dave has been and forever will be a part of our family. My Uncle Jim and my Aunt Marty, and happy birthday, Uncle Jim. Made the trek up from Kansas many times, always ready to help out in any way they could. Their humor and good cooking made my dad so happy. Thank you to my husband Dave and our 3 kids, Alex, Paul, and Glenn, for keeping the home fires burning so I could be with my father as much as possible. Their hugs and kisses always eased my sadness. An enormous thank you to my father's many friends, colleagues, and students. You've been with us through this entire journey. You visited my dad at home and in hospital. You kept him company. You kept him connected. You sent him cards and bobblehead pictures. You brought a sense of normalcy to a situation that was anything but. And also a great thanks to the rec community for the beautifully written obituary and this loving memorial service. Finally, I thank my dad for all the hours we spent together during his illness. It meant the world to me to hold his hand when the going got tough. To care for the man who had always taken care of me. Something amazing happens as a loved one begins to slip away. Wonderful memories, full of silence. These memories create a sort of protective layer around your heart. They come from you when the group threatens to incomplete hole. Of course, my father would say, I can't even say it, polypropylene long underwear are probably the best protective layer on a day like today. My dad and I took a 1-month trip to Australia when I was 16 years old. We had so many incredible adventures and saw so many wonderful things. And there were marsupials, of course, colorful tropical fish, and birds, so many birds. We started in Sydney and worked our way up the eastern coast of Australia to Queensland. When we arrived in Queensland, my father was determined to add the southern cassowary to his birding life list. Have you ever heard of this bird? It's the world's 3rd tallest bird after the ostrich and the emu, and is similarly flightless. Cassowaries live in only 2 small areas of the entire Australian continent, in the part of Queensland stretching up towards Papua New Guinea. Cassowaries have a number of unique traits, including blue plumage on the head and mane, 2 red wattles hanging from about the neck, and 3-toed feet with a deadly dagger-like center toe. It has a hard crest on the top of its head called a casque. Its purpose is not entirely known, but scientists believe it acts as a helmet protecting the bird as it walks headlong through the dense vegetation of the tropical forest. Quite interestingly, male cassowarids incubate the eggs and raise their young. Please picture the 2 of us in our rental car driving through a remote, prehistoric-looking tropical forest in search of this prehistoric-looking bird. My dad parked the car in what looked like the middle of nowhere to me. We got out and headed to a boardwalk path on the other side of the road. Our walk yielded the promising sign of fruit-filled cassowary droppings, but no bird. The sun was starting to set in an already dark forest. Our window of opportunity to see the cassowary was quickly fading. Frankly, I was a bit relieved because I wasn't so keen on that idea of the claw-like dagger. Yes. My dad was clearly disappointed though. We had come so far to see this bird. We got back in the car and slowly started to drive out of the forest. I bet you know what happens next. A cassowary stepped out of the brush and into the road right in front of us. And not just any cassowary, but a male followed by his chicks. My father was delighted. These magical sightings happened all the time with my dad. As far as I was concerned, he was a magician, conjuring wonderful things out of thin air. But in reality, he probably spent hours researching the best spot to find that bird. He probably checked in with local birders or park rangers to find out where the cassowary had last been spotted. What seemed effortless probably required loads of research and planning. Do you know what else was magical about that moment with the cassowary and his young? Somehow, my dad convinced his teenage daughter that she too was excited about seeing an elusive living entity in the middle of a tropical forest. Because let's face it, if our itinerary had been left to me, we would have spent the month shopping in Sydney and hanging out on the beach. I'm so glad we went with his plans instead. Our cassowary adventure has been on my mind a lot these last few months. After my dad passed away, it dawned on me that that bird was really a metaphor for him and for us. You see, when I was a small child, I tagged along with my dad almost everywhere he went. He was the man who carried me on his shoulders when I was too tired to walk. He taught me how to cross-country ski. He made me fried egg sandwiches for lunch. He braided my hair before school. He baited my fish hook and removed my catch. He helped me with my homework, no matter what the subject. He taught me that a love of learning is far more valuable than any letter grade. He encouraged me to pursue my interests, even if they didn't match his. That cassowary was also a symbol of my dad and his beloved students. Instead of a casque on top of his head, he had a seed cap. And instead of a waddle, he wore binoculars around his neck. Surrounded by his curious young and with his head down, he led them into the dense forest where there was so much to see and so much to learn. My father's insatiable curiosity and interest in science, and specifically the natural world, were infectious. Infectious in the best possible way. He was a wellspring of knowledge with an adventurer's heart. Whether birdwatching from his deck or hiking through a desert, he loved it all. And luckily, he loved to share his passion for flora and fauna with his friends, his family, his students. It was a gift to me, and I hope it was a gift to you. I'm going to miss my dad's amazing wit and wisdom. Let's face it, he knew the answer to everything. I'm going to miss just being with him. My 3 children never had the chance to go on a grand adventure with Grandpa, and that just breaks my heart. But I hope that the hikes we took with him around town and the handful of trips up north were enough to spark an interest in the natural world. If my father sparked a similar interest in you, I hope you will share it with your loved ones and join me in carrying on his legacy. Thank you. Frisbee. Jake led many trips, many of them with Jill Frankie. One of his last trips, we were lucky enough to have him come to Cuba with the bishop, and Bacha Bacha went and studied music in Cuba for 2 weeks. When we came back, we put together this song called Concho, and there's some alums that went on the Cuba trip. If you want to come up and just play clave with us, there's some instruments over here. Anjali, where are you? Somewhere. No? If you want, this is Concho.
Good morning. First of all, I want to apologize for my English because it's not so good, but I'm going to try. Hola, Jake. All of us would like to say hello. We know you left us last Sunday, but we feel like you are still here among us. You were such a special person. Every one of us is going to keep a little piece of you in our hearts, in our thoughts. You were an essential part of our break school. You have been a very important person in the Fernandez del Rey family. All started with you got married to my aunt Concha in 1990. You always talk about how during the wedding you were made up to dance with your mother-in-law, my grandma, and she told you that you didn't know how to dance. You smiled and took it. She made it up to you, spoiling you with her cooking when you went to Spain every summer to her house. Over the years, you became one of us. You helped to take care of your nephews and nieces, especially me when I was little, and I would say to you, love you very much. You cooked for us. We traveled around Spain with you and shared our culture and our traditions with you, like eating chocolate con churros at the bars, having tapas and telling jokes. We had so many wonderful moments. We will always admire your fantastic Spanish. It looks like you have read the Quixote 100 times. When we came to, we will never forget all your country beautiful places that you introduced to us. Your love for nature that you transmitted to us. We won't forget the hiking, singing to keep up with the birds at Glacier National Park, and of course, the many advice that you gave us about the cold weather and the mosquito bites in Minnesota. We were always amazed at the mosquito coverage with the multiple bites where your skin was free of any bites. That was unfair. Every time you were in Spain, you were enjoying every moment of it. Our family, the food, the culture, the nature, the landscapes. It's like you were Spanish. Proof of that is the delicious paella you made for some of the great stuff a few years ago. We could be telling stories about you in Spain for hours, but some of them may be so embarrassing to you. Like the time you ask, me da una caja de mochuelos, mistaking owls for things. Everyone who knows you in Spain will remember you like the funny great Americano who made us laugh with his kind sense of humor. By the way, my grandma will continue calling you Jake Mate, chessmate. So now I'm going to read a poem from Pablo Neruda to Jake Miller. De Neruda para Jacob Miller. Por eso yo profeso la claridad que nunca se detuvo y aprendí de las aves la sedienta esperanza, la certidumbre y la verdad del vuelo. El vuelo, el alto vuelo sigo con mis manos, honor del cielo, el pájaro atraviesa la transparencia, sin manchar el día. Vuelo de la saeta, que es la misión de cada golondrina. Vuelo del ruiseñor con su sonata, y de la cacatúa y su atavío. Vuelan con un cristal los colibríes, como viento esmeraldas encendidas, y la perdiz sacude el alma verde de la menta volando en el rocío. Yo que aprendí a volar con cada vuelo de profesores puros, en el bosque, en el mar, en las quebradas, de espaldas en la arena o en los sueños. Me quedé aquí, amarrado a las raíces, a la madre magnética, a la tierra, mintiéndome a mí mismo, y volando solo dentro de mí, solo y a oscuras. Por eso yo profeso la claridad que nunca se detuvo y aprendí de las aves la sedienta esperanza, la certidumbre y la verdad del vuelo. Thank you, Jake. We will always remember you.
The good thing, testing, do you hear me? I can't hear myself. The good thing about being up here is I can't see you very well, and I'm rather nervous. It's a lot easier being in class. If you ask your teachers what they most wish for you, the list is likely to be pretty long and thoughtful. My colleagues care a lot about you. Well, I guess I do too. One theme that commonly appears on such a wish list is that we hope to instill in our students a love of learning, a passion to know, what I prefer to call active curiosity. I've written more than once about a senior applying to grade school, saying that they show a genuine passion to learn for learning's sake. Don't misunderstand me. Learning because it will help you reach an important goal is not a bad thing. It's just that after all these years, I've come to the conclusion that learning something new or more deeply is always fulfilling. Hard work sometimes, but always worthwhile, even when you don't see how the knowledge might be useful. I want to talk about my personal experience at the risk of this seeming self-centered. I'm the topic that I guess I know the most about. My whole life I've been curious, wanting to know about nearly everything. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to brag on myself. In fact, if it came down to a Jeopardy match, I'd choose Mr. Peterson over me any day. But the thing is, if you keep your mind open, question, and seek to know what others before you have learned, over a few decades, what you know starts to add up. Curiosity can get you into trouble. There must be a good reason for the expression about curiosity killing the cat. But I'm going to leave out my trouble stories at this point and save those for another speech. How we use knowledge matters on all kinds of levels, personally and in the way they affect others. In 8th grade, acting like a know-it-all resulted in me being called the professor. My classmates didn't really mean that as a compliment, and frankly, it was pretty hurtful. Although I'm pretty happy with the moniker now. Okay, oh, it is working. See, I'm confused. There we go. This is Kismet that you just heard about. It was my fate to grow up in the town of Kismet, a town of about 250 people. Kismet, of course, means faith. This is the entire downtown. If you only look on the surface of this community, there doesn't appear to be much of interest. There are lots of farm fields, pastures, and the occasional windmill, and lots of open country. When I lived there, it was a small town with a small school. Just to give you an idea, my 6th grade class grew to 15 because of the addition of 6 new students from a country school that was a one-room school. It didn't seem like much of a place to me back then, but my journeys in life have been rich because people encouraged me to be a learner. My parents, who only finished 8th grade themselves, knew learning was important. They always supported me and valued me for being a good student. I had teachers who pushed me to work harder and to avoid being cocky, because sometimes I thought I was pretty smart. They believed in me and helped me learn about the world beyond Kismet. Perhaps the subtlety of Western Kansas contributed to my curiosity, wanting to know about nearly everything, because at the time there seemed to be so little. When I was 4, I conducted what may have been my first science experiment. We had a big harvester ant den like this one in the corner of our yard, which I watched from time to time. One day I decided to see what would happen if I drove a tricycle smack in the middle of the den. I think it was a pretty sophisticated question for my age. I learned some important animal behavior that day. I did get ants in my pants. Their bites smarted. But I learned about the defensive behavior of animals. I figured out that if you wait until dark, the ants disappear underground, and I was able to retrieve my truck. I like to think that was the day that I launched my science career. I flirted with science off and on after that, but didn't commit to that path until I was a junior in college. In between, I pursued a passion for speaking other languages, reading literature, and trying to write really bad poetry. I vividly remember the moment, that incredible May morning that changed my life and launched my career as a biologist. At the time, I was majoring in Spanish and French. It was all about seeing this bird and realizing that an exciting world had just been opened up, and my passion from years ago had just been reignited. So much had been missed in the grasslands of western Kansas. The incredible birds like this lesser prairie chicken. And the multitude of plants that I just thought were weeds and grass before became the topic of my master's thesis. Take a look at the numbers here. That's a lot of species that I overlooked all those years until I came back curious to see what I had been missing. That simple little American red star led me to complete my master's and PhD in biology and to pursue birds and other wildlife on all continents but Antarctica. That's waiting for return. Your parents may not be very happy with you if you change directions in college as much as I did, but I think like ecosystems, life is rich with diversity. In science class, I try to teach that curiosity is the root of good questions that lead to new and sometimes great discoveries. It was curiosity that produced the knowledge that allowed scientists to know that these apparently simple bacterial cells invented the rotary infant in the form of the flagellum, and ATP generating turbines billions of years ago. This simple diagram of cell structure is not all that different from what I learned in biology back in the 1960s. Although my students may have met, they are required to learn so much more. It's hard to imagine not being impressed by what we now know about cell structure and function. Particularly important, I believe, are those who ask questions that challenge current thinking, that take a risk, and that ultimately change what we teach and learn. Let me give a couple of examples. Dr. Lynn Margulis at the University of Chicago in the 1960s produced convincing evidence that eukaryotic cell organelles originated from symbiotic relationships between bacteria and other evolving larger cells. Her work led to important future studies, some of which supported her ideas, and some of which refuted her ideas, but her curiosity engendered curiosity in others and has changed how cells are perceived by us today. Dr. Sarah Purdy discovered infanticide, not a particularly pleasant topic, as a male strategy for causing females to become reproductively available in the hem and Langer. This is a phenomenon that was missed by primatologists for many years before her. And it's widely thought that she was able to see the social structure of language differently, in large part because of a different gender perspective. We now know that this is fairly common behavior and occurs in such animals as lions. The Genome Project, which formally began in 1990, was expected to take more than 30 years to complete. Thanks in large part to the novel ideas of J. Craig Venter, and it's probably need to be said, is also his ego. The project was completed in 13 years, and now, on the 10th anniversary of completion of the project, we're just beginning to understand the impact of that knowledge. At the rate technology is advancing, predictions suggest that sequencing of an individual genome may be possible for as little as $1,000 in a few years. What you learn about this field will be important to you. How we use the knowledge definitely matters. These discoveries will influence your lives. My final example deals with challenges to the widely held principles of genetics. There is now convincing evidence that diet, smoking, drug use, environmental factors, experience by your parents and even your grandparents can change the way inherited genes behave. This means that your lifestyle may influence your children in more ways than you imagine. All these ideas, frankly, make me a bit giddy. I have a little more studying to do, so let me conclude with the following thought. Who knows whether you will become famous or make a difference in a quiet way? But above all, be a learner. Follow your passions. Your life will be richer, and so will ours. Thank you.
Hello to everyone. I am Bob, Jake's older brother. On behalf of Conja and all of our families, we thank you for coming. We invite you for some refreshments. I'm told that it's through the back where the block is at. Secondly, follow all directed people because you know where it's at. But to the back and over to the right. Again, thank you for coming and enjoy the rest of the time.
I invite you to open your programs now and say this benediction together. Benediction is just a fancy way of saying good word. And we're going to leave our time together here with these good words. Together, let us pray. The rising and setting of the sun, we will remember you. The chill of winter and the warm summer winds, we will remember you. When we are lost or sick at heart, we will remember you. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember you. In the gardens you left, and the bird songs you knew, we will remember you. The lives you touched, and all the people you raised, we will remember you. For as long as we live, you too shall live. I'd like Bato Bato to take the stage now. Bishop and I are going to lead the family to the reception, and we hope to see you all there.
Thank you for coming. We're going to play one more piece as everyone's going out. This is called Caderas. It's a happy Latin piece that we hope sends Jacob on his way. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you, Peter.